inspired by people. Jamsetji Musirwaji Tata founded the Tata Group in 1868. He committed to improving the quality of life of the communities he serves. Carrying the legacy forward in 1945, J.R.D. Tata founded Tata Motors. He changed transportation in India forever. Tata Motors, the trust of everyone, everywhere. A committed workforce with over 51,000 people of 16 nationalities are guided by the vision. Best in the manner in which we operate, best in the products we deliver, and best in our value system and ethics. In India, Tata Motors is the largest automobile company. The market leader in commercial vehicles, and among the top 3 in passenger vehicles. It is the world's 4th largest truck manufacturer and the world's 3rd largest bus manufacturer. A $27 billion Fortune 500 company. Tata Motors operations are spread worldwide with 14 plants in Asia, Africa, and Europe. Tata Motors has a powerful presence that cuts across the length and breadth of the country, with manufacturing centers in every corner. Manufacturing bases of Tata Motors are at Jamshedpur, Pune, Lucknow, Pantnagar, Sanand, and Dharwad. Internationally, Tata Motors itself is present in the United Kingdom, South Korea, Thailand, Spain, and South Africa. The Tata Motors Group includes Jaguar Land Rover, the business comprising the 2 iconic British brands. Tata Daewoo commercial vehicles in South Korea. Tata Motors, Thailand. Tata Hispano in Spain. And Tata Motors, South Africa continue to spread their influence. Tata Motors is focused on environment-friendly technologies in alternate fuels. It has pioneered in hybrid and electric vehicles. A dynamic global R&D team spread across India, the United Kingdom, Spain, and South Korea translates consumer needs into creative engineering. Tata Motors is dedicated to quality and safety. All vehicles go through stringent testing to assure consumers of reliability, durability, performance, and safety for the ordinary and extraordinary needs. It is Tata Motors' commitment to return to society what it has earned from it. Through initiatives in health and family welfare, education, and employability. Today, products of the Tata Motors Group are sold in over 160 countries in every continent, from 75-ton haulers to 600 kg micro trucks. From the world's gold standard in SUVs to the world's most affordable car. From luxury coaches to four-seater passenger carriers. Tata Motors is inspired by people.
안녕하십니까. 반갑습니다. Better late than never. So good morning, Basio. And thank you to ICCK for providing this opportunity for Tata Motors and to present ourselves and also collide and have engagement with the Korean suppliers for our future. And I'll be talking a few slides now, very data intensive. I'll be going slow on the presentation so that you all understand. We have, to start with, I don't want to give a bad news, but that is the current situation in the country. But I'll walk you through why we would change and how fast we would change. The content would be Indian automotive industry, then supplier industry, relevance to Tata Motors, then relevance to India for Korean auto suppliers, and Tata Motors' expectations for suppliers from Korea. Next slide, please. Next slide. We are talking about the GDP growth here, and if you see, we are plotting it from 0.8. We had a very good GDP growth up to 9.4% in Q4 2010. Now we are currently at 4.8. Our GDP has declined drastically, and we have a lot of industrial growth slowdown in the country. We have many unemployment problems getting created, and industrial production, if you see, is also going down because of depreciating INR to dollar, and election year, rising deficits, and persistent inflation is going on currently. This is the current situation in the country. Next slide. This is the overview of the Indian automotive industry. By numbers, by volumes, we are the large amount of two-wheelers, and it is about 77%, but if you go by value, we have about 51% of passenger car market and 23% of commercial vehicles, and 24% will be two-wheeler by value. Next slide. The production volume, what you see is, it had been growing until last year, but this year we see a decline of 5.4% on production and sales by 7.5%. And this, what we're trying to say is that despite having continuous growth, we do have a little recession at this point of time, but we should not get disheartened with that because we have plans which I will share with you in the future. In continuous slides. Next slide. Production volume of MHCV, that is medium and heavy commercial vehicles. Again, we have a sales production drop of 9.7% and 16.6%, which is a severe drop. And we are struggling with excess capacities at this point of time in the country. Our suppliers are also not very healthy financially because of volume drop at this point of time. Next slide. On the LCVs, that is light commercial vehicle, it's a similar scenario, but somewhat lesser impact than medium and heavy commercial vehicles. Here it is about 2% in production drop and about 6% in the domestic sales. Next slide. These are our export trends. Majorly two-wheeler takes the lead by numbers, and three-wheelers also are a big player in this. And passenger car, 40% of Hyundai production goes as exports, and 75% of Renault Nissan goes as exports to the other country. Next slide. But we still say, despite this situation, we are still saying that India is a future growth anchor. Why? Very important, the rising incomes, especially the middle income class is growing very fast, and therefore the rising income is supporting them. Easier access to credits. They are not only public sector banks, but the private sector banks are also giving a lot of loans for the automotive. Investment by global car manufacturers. In India, we have almost all the manufacturers, global manufacturers, and they are investing pretty heavily for the future. And government stocks, auto, next slide please. Next. Yeah, auto policy 2002 has bring up a lot of liberalization and has approved the 100% investment by the global players in the industry. And we have a lot of R&D expenditure approved, which is also tax abated. And we have something called automotive emission plan to achieve 154 billion by 2016, but there is a delay because of this recession. And we see that happening by 2018 and so on and so forth. Setup of $388.5 million of global standard costs and R&D centers in excellence have been established in India, and they continue to grow further. Next slide. This is a very important slide. We are actually following, if you see the GDP with respect to China, we are following China from the time we got liberalization, and we are literally trailing a little bit. And there is a large amount of poverty of reduction in India. As you see, from 93% in 1985, it will go down to 22% in 2025. That means a large portion of people will become middle income group who will have the ability to buy passenger cars and other automobiles in the industry, in the country. Next slide. This is projections of various people like HSBC, Roland Berger and other people. They are showing a good growth in the GDP, but there's a slight coming down by 2030 because it will attain stabilization. And the projection is that we will have a great 6 to 10% GDP growth year over year. Next slide, which depicts the number of people having passenger car. It is a comparison. First column shows 2000 and second column is 2025. India is at 38 per thousand having passenger car and will grow to 72 per thousand, which is a substantial jump because of huge population what we have. Next slide. If you see this gap, this graph, China is 51% growth, and by 2020, and India has shown 121% growth. Means from the current status, by 2020, the growth percentage is 121%, and China is at 51%, and so on other countries. There are some adjustment of volumes which will take place, like Spain, France, Italy, Russia. There will be decline. Means basically adjustment of volumes which would happen. Next slide. This is a passenger vehicle market. We are expecting that by 2020 we will touch 5 million. There are various projections which shows from 5 million to 7.5 million. Here we are saying that pessimistically if you take, we should get 5 million, but most of the analysis says that we will touch 6 million vehicles in 2020. Next slide. This commercial vehicles is very important for Tata Motors because we are the largest player in commercial vehicles. And we expect by 2020 we will touch about 1.3 million commercial vehicles in the country, which comprises of small commercial, light commercial, medium and heavy commercial vehicles. Next slide. Long-term potential for Indian market to grow is very, very significant. And what we are trying to say is that despite so much of problem in the beginning, and we have a growth pattern which was growing, but there is a small recession time, but country will be back. And there is a potential in future where our growth will be very, very significant. Next slide. This is basically, I'm focusing on the supply industry. Sales of auto component industry in India is about $40.6 billion, and out of which 9.7 is an export, and balance $30.9 billion is consumed in the country. And if you see, there is a continuous growth on the auto component industry despite the vehicle industry's issues. The auto industry, component industry basically is going up because of maximum exports happening off late. Next slide. If you see the destination of auto component exports in the countries, basically focusing on North America and as well as Europe, because the Hyundai and as well as Renault Nissan also exports to these countries, especially Europe. And if you see in the North America, US is the biggest one with 23%, and next is Germany and followed by UK. Next slide. This slide shows the commodity-wise or distribution. Engine and transmission steering parts contribute to 50% of exports, and if you see the $1 billion, it is most towards passenger car. Since the passenger car, engine parts, drive transmission and steering parts contribute to the maximum amount of exports. Next slide. This must be very interesting to you. The EBITDA of Indian supply versus the global average. We are above the global average, and we are following the trend of the global average, but we are above them, above the world by almost about 2 to 3% in various cases. The next slide shows the commodity wise, and same on return on capital. We are also better on return on capital with respect to the global average. Next slide. If you see this slide, other than exterior, all other powertrain, chassis, electrical, interior are much better than the global EBITDA margins. Exterior is because most of the exterior panels are done by the OEMs in the country, within their own in-house. Plus there are many people, very competitive, so therefore due to competition, the EBITDA margins have been squeezed on the exterior parts. But on an average, we have about 2 or 2.8% better than the global average. Next slide. This is the import trend. What you see is we also do imports, not big amount, but about $13 billion. This is a good potential. Basically, we are getting out of China. 19.4% is imported from China because of competitiveness, as well as from some portion from Europe. Next slide. These are some large companies who are located in India: Bosch, Denso, ZF, Fiducia. There are some large companies who are supporting the Indian automotive industry, and they continue to grow. They are significantly making profits in the current situation too, and we expect more to get added to this list. Now, next slide please. We'll talk more in relevance to Tata Motors. Tata Motors, as you have seen in the video, we started in 1945, and we have right from Nano, which is the smallest car, to a large Brahma truck, and we make everything in between. And our passenger car had been little this year and the last year, but we have plans to come forward. And the basic help what we are getting now is currently from Jaguar Land Rover. It's an acquisition which we did, and they are supporting us technically for future products. So we will see a lot of mileage coming out of their help. Next slide. As I said, we offer a large portfolio, sub 1 ton to 49 ton vehicles and pickups. We also make, we are among the top passenger vehicles. We are number 3 at this point of time. Over 6.5 vehicles are running on the road in India, and 59,000 people across the globe. Next slide. We are located in various locations, both R&D as well as manufacturing. That's what we briefed in the video. The main major center is India, and our design center is in Europe for passenger car, which we call PMBTC. And we also take our own help within our plants in the country. Next slide. This is our footprint. We are located in 6 locations. That is Pantnagar, Lucknow, Jamshedpur. Pune is the largest one, and the Jamshedpur is the second largest. Sanand is a nano plant at this point of time, but we are going to add future portfolio in this plant. Our sales and service network. Next slide, please. We service in Europe, Middle East, Southeast Asia, South Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Africa, we have a pretty significant volumes to be going, and we are heading towards to increase. In Thailand, we manufacture Xenon, which is a pickup truck, and we also service in that region, complete ASEAN region, from the manufacturing location of Thailand. Next slide. As I said, we make nano, Indica, Vista, and various cars, and we have very recently launched 2 cars called Bold and Jest in the Auto Expo, which happened beginning of this month, and we see a good traction of demand coming up forward because our SOP will be somewhere in September timeframe. Next. On the trucks, we do from 49-ton truck to the smallest one, which is called ACE, and we are the largest manufacturer, and we hold about 60% market share in the country. Next slide. We make buses. We are not big player in premium buses where Volvo, Mercedes-Benz play a bigger portion, but in the value budget and low end, we have a lot of market share. Next slide. This is on the passenger vehicle. As it's shown that we are number 3, and our market share is significantly shrinking at this point of time because of lack of new product launches, but we have plans to launch about 6 platforms in the next 3 years from now. And we will regain our market share. We are pretty confident about it. This is the market share on the commercial vehicle segments, as it's shown 53% Tata, and others share the balance. Next slide. What do we buy? I think this should be very interesting. And basically, we buy trims, electricals, body, powertrain, and chassis is the largest portion which we consume, and we buy them. And we also have our own supplier base at this point of time, but we are also talking to many cooling suppliers the last 6-8 months to set up shop for us, especially on the trims and the chassis powertrain side. Next slide. Today, as we see, the PV market share has come down by 4%. CV, we have lost little market share marginally, but we will gain it back. Pressure on margins, reducing profitability, because there's a lot of pressure on the market for giving discounts. Next slide. Tata Motors has developed globally competitive products planned till 2020. In the last 2 years, there are a lot of portfolios which we are preparing and we are ready to launch, both on commercial as well as a passenger vehicle. We have advanced modular platform which is being developed. We are taking help of one of the company in Korea also to develop few passenger vehicle platforms. And we are very confident that we will gain significant market share both in passenger and commercial vehicles in the next 2 to 3 years from now. Next. The major driver for our growth in the commercial vehicles especially is because the primary range we are launching, and there are few are launched and few are getting launched shortly. And government orders, as the new government comes on board, because this is an election year, we expect a lot of bus orders to happen, which is basically government driven. And recently we have launched one of the best powertrain called Rivertron. It's a gasoline engine, and we expect good traction because of that. Next slide. There are a few products, as I said, the Bold and Jest we just launched this month, beginning of this month, in the Auto Expo, and we are seeing good traction on that. Next. This is the few Korean suppliers who are already existing, the OEMs or the companies. Samsung is one of the largest, Hyundai Motors, LG, Doosan, Hyundai Mobis, Hyundai Kia. We have now something missing, Hyundai Construction is also there, and Lotte Group is also in India at this point of time. Basically, you can also build up your business with these suppliers, to these OEMs or companies, if you can do when you come down to India. It's not just Tata or Mahindra or an Indian company. That's the idea of showing you that we have so many Korean companies there. And Tata Motors will focus on core areas and outsource the high assemblies. That's what our plan is. And the supplier should be having the ability to supply systems and aggregates, not just components. We are not much interested in components buying. Supplier should have independent capability to design, develop and validate the products, especially this is for passenger cars, that's what we expect. And strategic and technology partnership with Indian suppliers is also preferable. Readiness to put multiple facilities. As I showed you, we have about 7 locations, and we expect that our suppliers are closer to the manufacturing locations. So if anybody is interested or has the ability to invest in multiple locations are more welcome. What we intend to buy or what we intend to source is safety items like airbags, engine valves, injectable foams, hot forming parts, and EPS. Environmental is basically engine start stop. These are the line items which we can discuss once we have one-on-one meeting, but this is the one which we are focusing. We have already engaged with a few of the Korean suppliers and we have made some JVs and we expect more to happen. And these are the focus commodities and I wish everybody would look at this and see what you can do for our manufacturing places in the country. With this, thank you very much. Kamsahamnida.